Hidden Wisdom: Secrets of the Western Esoteric Tradition by Tim Wallace-Murphy. Studies have shown a clear linkage between Greek Hermetic schools and the mystery cults of ancient Egypt. The first Greek initiate was Pythagoras. He was a supreme individual, a mathematician, the founder of a school, a religious mystic who had a truly formative influence on Greek thought, science, and philosophy. He founded a school in Crotona in southern Italy shortly after his return to Greece. Pythagoras was born on the island of Samos about 570 BCE. His family sent him to Egypt to be initiated into the Egyptian temple mysteries. His influence led to the further development of philosophy, mathematics, and science. The outpouring of art, philosophy, and literature that accompanied the emergence of Greek civilization has been passed down to us virtually intact. Greek culture quickly developed all of the literary forms that we now regard as classic. After the Pythagoras times came Socrates and his pupil Plato. Socrates believed that knowledge lay within the reach of all who earnestly sought it. He also believed that sin derived from man's lack of knowledge, and ignorance was thus the overriding cause of sin, so much so that to reach the good, man had to attain knowledge. After the death of Socrates, Plato took refuge with many of the Socrates followers in Megara. Then began a period of exile and travel that lasted until 387 BCE, when he finally returned to Athens. Here in Athens, on the land dedicated to the memory of the legendary Academus, he founded a school that became known as the Academy. The Academy was modeled on the school founded by Pythagoras. The two schools became the direct ancestors of all universities through Middle Ages to the present day. The Academy gained so much importance, power, and influence over the minds of the thinking men and survived for over 900 years until it was forcibly closed by the Christian Emperor Justinian in 529 CE. The influence of the Platonic Academy is still felt today. The concept of the good, the beautiful, and the true was able to spread and ramify its undoubted influence throughout the known world, not only at that time, but even down to the modern era, thanks to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was a confluence of two distinct and separate national characteristics. The Greeks, who were known to be sublimely gifted, inspired creators and innovators, became allied to the sharp-eyed, innovative, pragmatic, and powerful Romans. The Greeks and the Romans combined to develop and sustain a political and intellectual climate within which were refined the ideas that became the very foundation for Western culture, and in the 2 millennia that followed, by the time of birth of Jesus Christ, the Roman Empire, which had doubled in size every generation since its foundation, encompassed nearly all the then known world. Transcending religions and ideas of tribe or nationality, and rising above them all in the Roman Empire was the respect accorded to education. The perfect vehicle for the new philosophical and spiritual ideas from Greece. Theology was inseparable from philosophy. Greek became the common language of the educated empire. The Greek culture provided an ambience within which the intellect was used to transform religious ideas. But they were all ideas that came from other cultures and other times, such as Babylon, Persia, and Egypt, that were now resynthesized in Greek forms. Thus, the Roman Empire, permeated by a Greek culture, created and sustained a world of religious tolerance, high levels of culture and art, and a deep respect for the values of education. Thus, philosophy, a science of the highest utility, flourished in antiquity among the barbarians, shedding its light over nations. And afterwards, it came to Greece. First in its ranks were the prophets of the Egyptians, and the Chaldeans among the Assyrians, and the Druids among the Gauls, and the philosophers of the Celts, and the Magi of the Persians. There is considerable debate as to whether the Celtic people had their origins in the northern part of India or in the Middle East. The Druids were the initiates of the Celtic people of Western Europe, whose teachings were handed down secretly from initiate to novice during the 20-year apprenticeship. All Celtic mythology was handed down in the same manner and was not given written form until after the Christian conversion. Like the ancient Egyptian initiates before them, the Druids showed surprising skills in healing and surgery, as evidenced by the archaeological findings now in Brighton Museum. The Celtic lands were conquered by the Romans, and when Julius Caesar conquered the Gaul, he brought with him all the benefits of the Pax Romana, a peace founded firmly on law, military might, and a surprising degree of tolerance for traditional forms of religion, local tribal customs, and beliefs. Religious toleration allowed a wide freedom of choice for all who enjoyed the benefit of the Roman rule. Apart from religions of Roman origin, each subject, tribe, or people had their own gods. The only real interference with tribal religious practice was the hijacking of certain sacred sites. In so doing, the Romans were simply following in the footsteps of the Druids themselves. The era of toleration and respect for the tribal gods was, however, short-lived. The Romans vigorously persecuted the Druids as they feared their potential as a unifying force among the warlike Celtic tribes. Traveling on the coattails of a declining empire was a new religion that was neither tolerant of the religious beliefs nor of the traditions and mythologies of the tribal people. The new religion was to transform the emergent Europe into a seemingly unified, narrow, and repressive society. The new religion, Christianity, was, in the name of love, peace, and redemption, to persecute and burn all those who followed more tolerant path of revelation. Sadly, the centuries that followed would be remembered for all time as the Dark Ages. Bitter disputes originating from the differences between the true teachings of Jesus and the version preached by Paul continued well into the secondary century. The Ebionites, the earthly followers of Jesus, knew that Jesus as a man had come to reveal the true path to initiation in the age-old Hebraic Egyptian tradition, a pathway to enlightenment. Paul, on the other hand, claimed that Jesus was divine and had come to redeem the world through his supreme sacrifice at Golgotha. It is believed that Jesus Christ had a brother by the name of James the Just. and John the Baptist was their cousin. The three were Levites through their mother's family line. John the Baptist was executed by Herod. In the Jewish tradition, a Levite is a member of the Hebrew tribe of Levi. When Joshua led the Israelites into the land of Canaan, the sons of Levi were the only Israelite tribe that received cities but were not allowed to be landowners because the Lord, the God of Israel himself, is their inheritance. With the murder of James the Just in Jerusalem, the stage was set for disaster. The killing of the priestly Messiah, who had inherited the mantle of John the Baptist, lit the fuse that eventually led to the explosive revolt of the Israelites against the hated Roman oppressors. The murder of James the Just initiated the complex chain of apocalyptic events that resulted in the destruction of the temple and the dispersion of the Jews, the dramatic fall of Jerusalem to the removal of the Jewish people from the Roman Empire, and with it, the one group which had real chance of preaching the true teachings of Jesus, the Essenes, initiatory, nationalistic, fundamentalist, and fervent Jews. With the death of James the Just and the dispersion of his followers, the stage was left almost entirely to St. Paul. In bringing his new gospel to the Gentiles, Paul used all the skills with which he was undoubtedly blessed, and his teaching rapidly became the foundation for all Christian theology. When the church grew and became established by the Edict of Milan, its Pauline theological base became the foundation for a sustained campaign of repression directed against all of its rivals, pagan temples, local deities, and the wide range of mystery cults and Gnostic groups, Christian or otherwise. The Pauline Christianity is the Christianity associated with the beliefs and doctrines espoused by Paul, the apostle, through his writings. The church was, at some point, a collection of heterodoxies rather than a unified and cohesive body. The temple had been destroyed and the followers of James had fled. Some had sought refuge among the Jewish and Christian settlements in the diaspora. From these various sources, a multiplicity of Christian texts appeared, each embodying the oral tradition of one group or another. Many were contradictory. Marcion of Pontus was one theologically eccentric man who brought to the complexities of these early written documents the principles of comparative scholarship, and thereby became a forerunner of Renaissance scholars of over 1,000 years later. Using rationalism combined with historical and critical analysis, he ruthlessly pruned this massive body of contradictory text of all that he considered false. Essentially, he stripped the New Testament down to its Pauline bones and rejected all the books of the Old Testament on the grounds that they were speaking of a rival God, a vengeful, bloodthirsty, judgmental God, one substantially different to the loving Father of whom Jesus had spoken so movingly. He fervently believed a loving God who would not rely on fear and terror to compel obedience, but that divine love would provide both the motivation and the means whereby a true Christian life could be lived by any individual. His message was soon denounced and buried by the massive repression of the church by Tertullian, who felt that without fear and punishment, man would rapidly degenerate into sin and orgiastic practices.